I'm not sure how many of y'all think about river flows and sediment transport when you're out here on these creeks and rivers. It's kind of an interesting thing to think about because basically what we fish in these streams and the habitat that we fish is really all part of sediment transport during floods. And so here on this stream we have a situation where you can see that this bank on the opposite side is very high and has this big beach over there next on the front side of that rock. We pan over here to the left and look upstream. You can see that the stream is kind of straight here, and so during floods or during high water, the water is ripping down that bank right there, and then it hits this turn. You can see the river turns to the right. Okay? So what seems to be happening here, based on the pattern of the sandbars on that beach right there, is that when this water, say 5 to 8 feet higher than it is right now, you have this water coming down that bank really fast, and it's hitting this curve, and it starts to spin. And it's deflected somewhat, I'm sure, by that big rock right there. And you end up having this pool, this whirlpool, if you want, a circulation right here, where the water is circulating, where the rest of it's going straight downstream over there. When you have a flood, when the water picks up, the first thing it does is it picks up sediment and carries it with it. It's why the water is muddy when you have floods, right? But this isn't like a situation where it's dissolved in the water, it's literally carrying it along with it. So the reason it's suspended is energy. It's being kept in suspension because of the flow. When you have a situation like this where all of a sudden something deflects the flow and starts making it slow down, you have sediment deposition. And so when you have this whirlpool, it's not going as fast as it was, and a lot of the sediment starts dropping out. And so you end up with something like that beach on the opposite side there, and you have this sandbar that's right here in the foreground that is probably set up from those floods. And then when the water goes down and starts getting down to lower levels, these sandbars can become, well, sandbars. They can be little mini islands, and the flow that's remaining starts cutting away the sand and moving it downstream. And you can see where you have that deep edge right there, and it hits that elbow there and it cuts to the right. And if I move over here, you might be able to see we have a real sharp edge of sediment right here. This water is super shallow. It's not even over the laces of my wading boots right now. And then it gets, 4 feet deep over there next to that bank. And so the sediment is deposited mostly during floods, but then it gets cut during regular flow to having these channels like that. The reason why I'm even mentioning all this is how we discern where we're going to be fishing. We're not going to be fishing in something that looks like this, because it's barely wet enough to wet your boots. Even over there is pretty darn shallow. But you hit this elbow here, and you have the current deflection, and you start cutting into the sediment. It creates these deeper runs or even pools, which is where a lot of the fish that we like to fish for tend to hang out. So I don't know how often y'all think about these sort of things. I don't, probably as much as I should, but it's interesting. If you pay attention to your surroundings, you can start to discern some things. That is a very high bank over there. It's very typical for one bank of a stream to be a lot higher than the other. If I circle around behind me, you can see this bank is nowhere near that high. It's got a bunch of vegetation growing on it, but you can see the trees are real close to where the canoe is, down to there. So it doesn't look anything like that bank over here, where your trees are way up there on that ridge. And it's very typical to have one bank steeper and higher than the other, and that's usually the cut bank, the bank that the floods cut into and create those steep things. And over here, this is probably part of the deposition area that's deflected over there, and it creates these lowland flood zones. Geomorphology of rivers and streams is a field of study in and of itself, and you certainly don't have to become experts at it. But thinking about it every once in a while certainly can help you enhance your river fishing experience, and if nothing else, just make you feel a little more connected to the outside world and the riverscapes that we fish and how they're developed and how dynamic they are.